Welcome to Tall Talk Times, a podcast made by beautifully tall people.
For beautifully tall people. Hello, Letty.
Hi, Tom. I just noticed on season 2, we presume everyone knows who we are now. We don't bother introducing ourselves.
Oh, well, we can reintroduce ourselves, of course, for new listeners. So, ladies first, obviously.
Oh, that's me. Thanks. I'm Letty Saunders.
Yes. That's Letty Saunders, and I'm Tom Garner.
So, Tom, before I get all overexcited, can I just give our wonderful listeners a date for their diaries, please?
Of course, yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Every month we celebrate Height with a social in London, but on Saturday the 18th of May, we've got a night out in Bath.
A night out in Bath. Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's a lovely place.
So we've got a few drinks venues and then an eatery at the end of the evening. So we're kind of spreading Tall Talk Times out a little bit.
Indeed, yes. And I've just realised the way I pronounced it, clearly there's a north-south divide here. I said Bath and you said Bath. But I guess Bath is correct because it's in the south. Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, pronunciation, colloquialisms. But
it is, but you can have this one because I have no excuse because it should be Bath.
Yeah. Does it feel odd saying it like that?
What, saying Bath?
Yeah.
It does a little bit because I just, there's no, to my phonetic mind, there's no R in Bath. It's just B-A-T-H. So I just say Bath. Same with castle and grass and all that sort of thing. But then when I used to live down south, people would pick me up and then go, "Oh my God, you say Bath and castle, not Bath and glass." I was like, "Oh, okay. I didn't know it was such a bone of contention, but there we are."
Going completely off the tall piste.
I'm very sorry. Yes, I've just had a linguistic tangent.
It's very interesting. Okay, so going back to Saturday the 18th of May, Tall Talk Times, night out in Bath. And for further details, have a look at our Facebook group, please.
Yes, it does. It genuinely sounds delightful. So yeah. Do sign up if you want to go to the place where the Roman stuff is.
You're worried now.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it anymore. I give up.
Okay, Tom. Well, let's give you something that you are very good and comfortable at talking about, and that is the next part of our podcast, Giants of History.
Oh, yes. So, yes, welcome to this week's Giants of History. So Letty, this week we have an interesting lady this week. Okay. I'm going to talk about. So we're going to have to go back to the early 20th century, to southern England more specifically. I'm going to introduce you to Vita Sackville-West. So have you heard of Vita Sackville-West at all, Letty?
No. I've heard the name Sackville before, but no, I don't know this lady at all. This is all new to me.
But you will have heard of Virginia Woolf.
Of course, yeah.
Wow. Vita Sackville-West is very much connected with Virginia Woolf, but we'll come on to that a bit later. So, born into an aristocratic family in 1892, Vita Sackville-West was an English author and garden designer whose written works included 13 novels, over a dozen collections of poetry, as well as prolific amounts of diaries and letters. She won various awards for her epic poem, The Land, and her 1933 collected poems. She was also a columnist for The Observer between 1946 and 61, but perhaps her most significant professional achievement is Sissinghurst Castle Garden in Kent. So that is one of the most famous gardens in England. So Sackville-West created this garden with her husband, Sir Harold Nicholson, and she worked in it for over 30 years during the 1930s and 60s with a succession of head gardeners. It's now owned by the National Trust, and it receives over 150,000 visitors a year. Now, I haven't been to Sittinghurst, but I've seen lots of photographs of it. It looks amazing. Have you been there at all?
No, I mean, we do like to do our National Trust Tall Talk Times outings. We do like a garden and coffee and
Well,
cake. But
well,
tell me why this garden is so good. Why is it the design? Yeah.
it's the design, it's the size of it. It's very quintessentially English. I haven't been myself, but every person I have known that's been there, they all rave about it. Um, it's just one of those. I think it kind of epitomizes what an English garden should be.
Right.
But weirdly, despite the fact that Sittinghurst is a very famous garden, and despite the fact that Vita was a prolific writer and journalist, she's most famous for her tumultuous personal life. And when I say tumultuous, prepare for a lot of gossip.
Excellent. Okay, well, I'll grab the popcorn and kick back.
So I should start with her height. So she's 6 foot tall as a grown woman, but but her height is a bit on the back burner compared to what happened in her personal life. So she was devotedly married to her husband, Sir Harold Nicholson, for almost 50 years. Despite that, both were bisexual and had numerous affairs with members of the same sex.
Sounds like they had an arrangement.
Very much so. And from her youth, Vita was known to be hot-blooded, heart-led, dark, and romantic. And before she met Harold, her most significant relationship was with Violet Keppel, which began when they were both teenagers. Now, Violet was the first person to notice Vita's height and write it down. So when they were teenagers, Violet described Vita as tall for her age, gawky, dressed in what appeared to be her mother's old clothes. So which is rather, I don't know what to make of that comment, really, but it gives you a sense that she's got a distinctive appearance. And so by the time she's 16, she's 6 foot tall. So she would have stuck out amongst the high Edwardian society.
Yeah.
And as if to emphasize her appearance, Vita would also dress flamboyantly, and she was among the first women to paint her nails in daring, vivid colours. I didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
So here's me thinking that a trendsetter. Here's me thinking that nail varnish was a thing that goes back centuries, but it turns out Vita in the early 20th century was a trendsetter in that regard. So she has that relationship with Violet, but she marries Harold in 1913. But the relationship with Violet continues for many years afterwards. Now, this is despite Violet as well being married to a man, an army officer called Major Dennis Trefusis.
Okay.
And so she becomes Violet Trefusis. From 1918, the two women would often escape from their husbands together, and they'd spend a lot of time in France. To achieve these subversive trips, Vita would disguise herself as a man, which was easily done with her statuesque 6 feet frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And on one occasion, she even eloped to Paris with Violet. Now, I found an interesting quote that Vita herself wrote. Acting like a tall man suited her, and she wrote of her first cross-dressing adventure in 1918. So this is what Vita said. I went into wild spirits. I ran. I shouted. I jumped. I climbed. I vaulted over gates. I felt like a schoolboy let out on a holiday. That wild, irresponsible day. So she's...
Wow. You see, of all those things that are afforded to men that aren't for women of that time, so dressing as a man meant that she could have that behaviour. She was able to do it.
I think so. And I think being 6 foot tall clearly helped her to make an effective disguise. But there are pictures of Vita, and she's a very feminine woman, but clearly she was quite able to, incorporate a masculine look quite easily. And these trips to France happened for many years. In 1920, on another trip, both of their husbands were forced to chase after them in a small 2-seater airplane and bring them back home, which is just bonkers.
I mean, those poor men are driven mad by these women. Excellent.
I know.
I love that.
And eventually, the relationship did peter out between Violet and Vita, but they did remain friends for the rest of their lives. However, I've mentioned Virginia Woolf earlier. And so later on in the 1920s, Vita had her most famous affair with Virginia Woolf. Now, Virginia Woolf is one of Britain's most famous writers of the 20th century. She wrote novels like Mrs. Dalloway, for example, and she was a member of the Bloomsbury group of writers. They were a very famous set of bohemians who lived, who had very decadent lives all over the place. Now, Vita wasn't part of the Bloomsbury group; she was just associated with it. But, however, she inspired Virginia Woolf to write the novels To the Lighthouse and Orlando. Now, in the novel Orlando, the hero, who is called Orlando, he's a poet who changes sex from man to a woman and lives for centuries without perceptibly aging. Now, Virginia wrote about Vita's inspiration for this main character. And this is what Virginia said. And instantly, the usual exciting devices enter my mind. A biography beginning in the year 1500 and continuing to the present day, called Orlando. Vita, only with a change about from one sex to the other. Now, Orlando is a bit of a gender-bending novel, and it's been turned into a film in the 1990s. Now, I wonder if Vita's height and her use of it to cross-dress was an inspiration. It's hard to say, but I think that's probably where it went. Now, this relationship continues for quite a few years, but it ended in the 1930s. And like Violet, they remained friends until Virginia died in 1941. Again, what's interesting about Vita and Virginia's relationship is how their heights were later portrayed on film. So, like I say, Vita, she was 6 feet tall, but Virginia was 5'7". So we would allow Vita into Tall Talk Times, but Virginia Woolf, no, can't let her in. No,
we have to
too short.
So, but with our meets, you're allowed to bring a shorter +1, aren't you?
This is true.
Maybe she could come as Vita's +1.
Maybe. I think we'll have to build a time machine, won't we? Just to see if that would work.
I think we can do a time machine.
This is true, but I think, I hope, maybe it comes down to budgeting.
Yeah.
So Vita was 6 foot tall and Virginia was 5'7". However, in 2018, a biographical film about their relationship came out, and it was called Vita and Virginia, and it starred Gemma Arterton and Elizabeth Debicki. Now, Elizabeth Debicki is 6'3".
Yeah.
While Gemma Arterton is 5'6". However, it's Debicki who plays Virginia, while Arterton plays Vita. So there's a complete height swap in this film. So it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense at all, does it?
No. And this fact was not lost on Virginia Woolf's great niece, Emma Woolf. And she even wrote an article in the Times about it called What Vita and Virginia Gets Wrong, which is quite a damning article about the historical accuracy. Conversely, I found another film review that thought that the height swap worked well. And this is the quote that I found. So the film reviewer said, Vita's striding elegance is commanding and viscerally powerful. The casting reverses their physical size. Vita was very tall and thickly built, while Virginia was much smaller. And the film also presents Vita as more Mayfair, inverted commas, than she was. She was an aristocrat, but she was too tall and awkward to have real glamour.
Ooh.
Now, I found that quite, I thought that'd be interesting for us to discuss, because that goes against very much our beautifully tall mantra.
Doesn't it?
What do you think of that?
I think people are made to feel awkward because of the pressures that societal norms put on people. This whole women should be a certain height, men should be a certain height even. But for men, it's great. You're a tall man, and men are supposed to be tall, so that's fine. That's great. But for women, obviously, if everyone's staring at us, we're going to feel slightly awkward, and we all go through a phase, I think, of pretty much growing into ourselves and accepting our height.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And when I read that quote, I thought, "Too tall and awkward to have real glamour."
Mm.
I thought instantly when I read that, that's surely heightism of
Oh
some
yeah.
kind, as though implying that you can't be tall and glamorous.
I mean,
I
come
mean, I know what
on.
you mean about
Have you
yeah,
seen our ladies? The glamour at the
of
meets.
course,
I mean, how gorgeous
highly,
are they?
yeah, of course, absolutely, yeah, very glamorous, yeah. And I think to me, if you're taller, it adds more glamour because you're more visible, if that makes sense, and therefore you can present more.
Well, yeah, that's why we have tall models and not short models. I'm sure there are perfectly lovely short models out there, but
Yeah. So what? So but.
sorry.
So I think when I read that, I just thought I think this film reviewer is talking nonsense.
Yeah, let's put that down to nonsense.
Yeah, complete nonsense. But it is interesting. But I do think it was very strange to have the height swap in the film, because clearly you're going to have Virginia Woolf as a tall woman when she wasn't, and I think a lot of Vita's um, charm and personality was down to her height. She knew how to carry herself.
Yeah, and
So
also
yeah, so
the dressing as a man, being able to carry that
yes,
off because of her height. Yeah, that's a interest. Maybe you should interview the director, Tom, and ask them why.
maybe I'll interview them and just say bluntly, "Excuse me, but what were you thinking?"
Yeah,
Honestly.
yeah. No, I'm going to definitely look more into Vita Sackville-West because she sounds like a cool woman, an interesting character.
Yeah, definitely. And also for Tall Talk Times, if you're having events in the National Trust, Sissinghurst is not far outside of London. So it could easily be an event that we could post there and say this was founded by one of our giants of history. That'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. I've already written a note.
There you go.
Another post-it note on the wallpaper of post-it notes. But no, that's brilliant.
Marvelous.
So, Tom,
So there we go.
Vita Sackville-West. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tom, for Giants of History. I will definitely look into Vita Sackville-West and her life story.
Well,
Thanks.
well, you're welcome. You're welcome. So Letty, who have we got to interview for this week?
Blanka Volna. She's one of our...
Blanka Volna.
Yeah, it's a brilliant name, but she has a most beautiful voice as well. So we're going to go
Yes.
over and have a listen to this interview, Tom. Tell me what you think. Welcome to Tool Talk Times podcast, where we chat with people from our tool community with various skill sets, but with one thing in common. We are all beautifully tall. I'd like to welcome the wonderful Blanka Volna. Hi, Blanka.
Hi, Letty.
Hi. We met at one of the Tool Talk Times events, didn't we, recently?
Yeah, I believe so. Was it the Last Judgment?
Yeah.
I think so, right?
That's it. The Last Judgment, because you picked up on some of my Facebook posts on wearing heels and being outside of my comfort zone, didn't you?
Oh, yes, I did. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna put on heels as well.
Yeah.
There are other beautifully tall people. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I'm 6 foot tall without the heels, and putting heels on can sometimes feel a bit like, I'm gonna stick out even more.
Mm-hmm.
But in company of you and Tom, and I think I met Sherry there as well.
Yeah.
It was just like, wow, I actually felt short.
It's great. It's a weird feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really strange. I'm not used to that. I'm used to like always sticking out, especially when I have shorter friends and we go out. And once I even experienced something which wasn't pleasant, like going with a friend of mine for her birthday celebration to a club. And as I mentioned, my friends are shorter, so they were all dressed really nicely, heels. I put heels on as well.
Yeah.
And we went to the club, and I was picked on by a guy.
Oh, no.
Who, for some strange reason, wanted to have an argument with me about who is taller. And he wouldn't believe me that I'm 6 foot. He was telling me I'm a liar.
Whoa.
because he is 6 foot. Yeah. And he was telling me that I shouldn't wear heels because nobody is going to dance with me.
Wow. Yeah, these are all stereotypes, aren't they? Where us women are supposed to be little tiny Kylie Minogue.
Yeah, absolutely. But I am very happy to say that this happened after I've done lots of healing for myself. And I was able to look the guy straight in the eye and say, "Thank you for your feedback." Walked away with my friends, and I kid you not, I was dancing the whole night.
Brilliant.
And none of the partners cared that I was slightly taller than them.
No, that's great. But it's important that you mentioned that you've healed, because there are some people that really don't like their height, and I used to be very much like that. I used to cower, but we can't hide. I'm 6'3.5", and yeah, wearing heels, obviously, I'm a lot taller. But no, it was lovely. It was lovely to meet you that evening, and I think it's pretty important to let our podcast listeners know that we have a monthly meet in London, and we have some other events, National Trust meets and evenings out in Bath, and people can find out where they are on our Facebook group. So
Yes, that's how I found you.
Is it brilliant? That is good. We also have Instagram, but that feeds back to the Facebook group. But the events are just listed on there. But I'm sorry that you had that experience when you were out. I don't understand why that chap needed to be taller than you. But you come across them, I
mean,
suppose.
Looking back on that experience, there are two things which I am aware. First one, he was drunk. So possibly, felt like empowered by consumption of something alcoholic.
Yeah.
And second one is, I strongly believe this is linked to the mindset that I put myself in before going, because I was picking up like clothes and was feeling fairly body conscious. And as I mentioned already, my friends are shorter. So even when I was putting on the heels, I was thinking, oh, is it a good idea? But then it really accompanied nicely my outfit. And it's just like, I don't know, 3 inches maybe, like nothing, super high.
Yeah.
So I think that also contributed to what I ultimately created there, because I was thinking about, I hope that nobody is going to say anything. And somehow I attracted exactly that.
Yeah. But when we were out and there's a whole group of us, I think people act differently, don't they? Because when there's a whole group of us being tall together, very, very few people say a word. But when you're on your own, it's easy pickings, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, as they say, there is a strength in a crowd, right?
Yeah.
So when we are all similar height,
Yeah, no
I
stopping
think
us.
yeah, exactly. I think people just, find it interesting and maybe easier to accept.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Blanka, can you remind me, do you come across this in your day-to-day life? You've got many different skill sets. So do you come across a problem with your height in other situations?
The best part is when I go to office. When I go to office, I usually wear flats or trainers.
Yeah.
But when I used to put on my heels, which again are fairly short, people looked at me and they are like, "Oh, you are tall." And I'm like, I've been walking around you like for days and weeks, and we know each other.
Sure.
But
Sure.
in a minute, I'm slightly taller. You notice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's taken you that long to notice how tall I am. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
And I would say the other thing is that sometimes it can be challenging on public transport in London. Like I had quite a few meetings with handles and all of these door frames and stuff like this, because usually 6 foot, suddenly 6'3", and everything is in my head level.
Yeah. Oh no, believe me, I have I have problems with my neck from knocking my head on beams in the previous house that I lived in. Was a little cottage with very low ceilings and beams.
Yeah.
And I think we all, when we're very tall, have a natural experience of concussion, unfairly, but hey, we do. So,
Brilliant.
Blanka, what else do you do? I enjoy my nature walks. I go out and it gives me a chance to kind of process everything that's going on in my life. And I understand that you have a special love of your nature walks too.
Yeah, I do. I'm really drawn to nature. I'm finding that like there is a peace in nature,
Yeah.
and like even the whole concept of grounding, which is just being in like an open space and walking on the grass or hugging a tree sometimes.
Oh, I hug a
Really.
tree daily.
Oh, here we
Daily.
go. Or recently, I started dog walking as well for like people around me because I can't have my own dog and it's just completely different experience. So I absolutely love that.
I love that you've taken that negative of not being able to have your own dog into a positive where you, look after other people's dogs. That's brilliant.
Thank you. Took me actually a long time because I used to tell myself I can't have a dog because of the house restrictions and because living in a share house and there are other people I need to be considerate and kind of being upset about it or almost angry
Yeah.
because I wanted to have a dog. But then like looking at the whole kind of how to say opportunities from different point of view, I came across this app which is called Borrow My Doggy. And on there, people who have dogs are lending their dogs to people who can't have dogs.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I don't
Yeah.
have dogs, but no, I mean, dogs don't care about your height at all, do they?
No, they don't. They are non-judgmental and they just love to be walked and cuddled and, loved. And to be honest, actually being tall is advantage because I'm seen as a powerful.
Yeah.
Like actually, once upon a time, I had this conversation with my dance teacher because dancing is another thing that I do.
Lovely.
And she told me that she always thought about me as powerful, strong, independent, nothing in a world can kind of ruffle my feathers. And basically, if this whole kind of subject of tall people being seen as authorities,
Yeah.
so I would say that is like an advantage for us who are beautifully tall because other people actually perceive us as leaders.
Yeah.
And when she told me that, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I was feeling insecure. I was the tallest of the class. I was doing belly dancing out of all dances where you're supposed to look very graceful. And I'm just like thinking, I'm too tall, I'm too thin, I'm this, I'm that. I can't fit in this classroom because it has too low ceiling and we had to lift our hands and do like a choreography.
Mm.
So eventually, actually, with this dance teacher, we did a little exercise where she took a step to be on my level of height,
Wow.
and I crouched down to be to her level, and we like switched the points of view of the world.
Okay. How did she find it?
She was like, "Oh, this is really amazing." And when I was looking from like lower, I was like, oh, okay, now I don't see other people's heads. I see more like mid bodies.
Did you prefer it or do you prefer your height?
I'm used to my height. I found it as interesting exercise, but I wouldn't change.
Right. Yeah. But you say you've had some healing. You've processed and you fully embrace your height now. Am I true in thinking that maybe once upon a time, like me, you didn't?
Oh my God, yes. Even this whole dancing, like if you met me at the start of my dance journey, I would be wearing like baggy clothes and hiding in the back of the classrooms,
Yeah.
trying to be invisible, constantly thinking I need to be back because other people need to see. So even though I don't see the teacher, I need to be the considerate one because I'm too tall and other people won't be able to see. So there was a lot of struggle and internal conflict because, among other things, I'm also short-sighted. So it's like, I need to be closer.
Because you can't see. I think it's more important that you can see what's going on, but you're a lovely nature, so you pulled right back, couldn't see so well, so other people, their view wasn't blocked.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just this constantly like having it in the back of my mind, plus being picked on at school because once upon a time I done this crazy thing that I had my hair colored bright orange.
Fab.
I looked like a
Brave.
traffic light.
Oh, oh bless you.
It was an accident, one has to say. It wasn't planned. The plan was to have red highlights.
Okay, well, it didn't work. I've had some hair disasters in my time. What did you do?
Yeah. I just embrace it. I mean, back then I didn't even thought about fixing it. I just kind of, well, embrace is a very strong word.
Yeah.
I kind of got used to it.
Were you purposefully maybe stepping outside of your comfort zone?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I just remember that I felt very powerless.
That's not a
And
good feeling.
yeah, and I didn't even realize that there is actually something I can do about it. It's almost like accepting what happened and be like, okay, this happened and I can't do anything about it.
But you did.
And well, I didn't do that much. I mean, I just, as I said, embraced it. I didn't try to color it to another less crazy color. But like looking back on these experiences, I'm just telling myself, I used to be that sort of person because I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I have choices. Like it's just today when I'm like watching, hair disaster tutorials on Facebook or something, that actually I can see that there is a way to fix it.
Yeah.
But back then I did not have that awareness. And you just mentioned the healing. I would say the big part of healing is to learn that there are choices.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have a choice about our height though, do we? I mean, we have a choice about what colour we dye our hair, or we hope we do. But when it comes to our height, there's nothing that we can do about it at all. We have to either choose to embrace it or permanently apologise for it.
Yeah, exactly. So you have a choice. I mean, even though we are tall and we can't change our physique, we can change our mindset, we can change our attitude.
Yeah.
And if we are constantly thinking, like I used to think, oh gosh, I'm too tall, I need to stay in back, or other people won't be able to see, oh gosh, I'm too tall, everybody's gonna pick on me, oh, I can't put on heels, then this sort of experiences will happen because that's the energy that we are projecting
Sending out.
outside.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's almost
Exactly.
like a negative law of attraction.
Yeah, exactly.
So we turn that around and we say, yeah, beautifully tall. I am a tall woman and I embrace it. And sometimes, yeah, we step out of our comfort zone and we fake it until we make it. And then we are that tall, confident woman. That's me anyway, A lot of that is a great big gulp of confidence and we're off. But please tell me some more about the ways that people can flip their thinking from negative thoughts about their height to positive thoughts about their height.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to. So one of my passions is behavior, mindset, and psychology. So I'm actually trained hypnotherapist. I prefer to say hypnocoach.
Okay.
And basically what happens in hypnosis is that we can work with the unconscious mind. So accessing like past memories, sometimes people are not even aware of them. And when you work on that level, you can change behavior, thoughts, patterns, because suddenly you might actually realize that this thought about you being tall is just because somebody once upon a time was constantly repeating to you, oh my gosh, you are so tall.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with you? Or something along these lines.
Yeah, something negative. That sounds quite
Yeah,
familiar, actually.
exactly, something negative. And then because we were told this negativity so much over our lifetime, it became ingrained.
Yeah.
So what I do in my hypno sessions is going down the memory lane and basically understanding where did this thought process started? Where did the first occurrence of being tall includes being seen as negative or something wrong about me or being called giraffe?
Yeah.
Ben actually,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I mentioned it. Tall Talk Times, we don't do animal comparisons because I am not a giraffe. I am not a daddy long legs. I am, like you, a beautifully tall woman. And please don't compare me to an animal.
Yeah, exactly right. But let's just say that it's like this kind of old way of seeing something which is not familiar. So people tried to find something to compare it against.
Yeah.
So I was told giraffe my pretty much whole life. Funnily enough, I've been called giraffe by my dad, who is similar height as me.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And I was accepting it until last summer when I actually looked at him and I'm like, okay, so you're a giraffe too.
What did he say? What did he say, Blanka?
He didn't expect it at all, and he stopped.
Immediately, and he hasn't said it since.
No.
That's brilliant. That's great. It's funny, he probably thought that, he was helping you own your height by comparing you to a giraffe, and all these years later, and now you've all grown up, to saying, no, Dad, actually, I'm just your tall daughter.
Yeah, exactly. We are the same height, so if I'm giraffe, you are giraffe too.
That's
It's
fabulous.
it's just like, doing something differently. Like if I would do what I've always done, I would be like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. But this time I'm like, no, I
Yeah,
just don't accept it anymore.
yeah. So also, being kind to ourselves is pretty important, isn't it? For anyone's mental health, doing what's important, pacing myself is something that I have to do. Being kind to ourselves, especially when we've been in environments where people have been negative about our height. So I can understand why you do the dog sitting and why you walk dogs and hang out with animals, because they don't really care how tall you are, do they?
No, they don't. They are just pure love,
Ah,
and they are so connected to earth and nature. Like, I saw a meme fairly recently. It was saying something along the lines that dogs are the angels without the wings. It made me smile.
oh, bless. Oh,
Yeah.
no, they're lovely. There are dogs on my walk that come up and say hello every day.
Yeah.
They expect me there. I go home to my cat smelling of dogs. I have to wash my hands very quickly. But they're my emotional support animals, my fur balls at home. Yeah,
Yeah.
because being tall, being very tall, can give us a bit of an impact, a negative impact. So we have to keep pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone and embrace being tall, which is easier said than done, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be, especially like if you look at the kind of, I would say, old world and how it views especially tall women. Once upon a time, I used to date a guy, he was slightly shorter than me.
Yeah.
And I didn't care that much until somebody pointed it out to me. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm doing something which
Wrong.
is
Yeah.
wrong. And then I started like, crouching down in our pictures or avoiding mirrors when we were together because it was constantly in my mind.
Oh no.
Yeah, it has that much power that basically somebody just points something to us that, we might not even be aware of before. So that's why I really love seeing role models, tall women, tall, powerful women
Yeah.
who are just amazing. Like, I absolutely love seeing this couple, Zendaya and Tom Holland, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's taller than him,
It's
and she's
brilliant.
wearing heels.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yes, please, more of
Yes.
these.
Yes. More tall women in the public eye. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we can't relate to anyone in the public eye, coming out to our events, our monthly meets in London, seeing other tall women and tall men. I mean, there was a photograph of a few guys at we had at the Old Bank of England last month of these tall chaps who needed to maybe grab some, I think they call it some random smaller person, because they're all 6'6" plus. They all look perfectly in line with each other, whereas
Mhm.
we need some reference point to show how tall they are.
I love it, reference point.
So I'm going to have to maybe take a cardboard cutout of an average size person so we can see how tall the chaps are. But hopefully you can join us, Blanka, at the next meet in London on the 17th of May. And the details of the location are on our Facebook group, Tall Talk Times.
Yeah, definitely. I'm planning to be there because I really love the last meetup. It's just putting things in perspective.
That's really good. And you've healed and you still are enjoying hanging out with tall people. So that's good.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's just, like boost of confidence because suddenly you're like, oh, I'm not the only person. Actually, I'm not the tallest one. This is great.
Yeah, I'm not the tallest woman there either.
Yeah.
There are women taller than me. And obviously, when I stand up in my heels, some of the women, because our height reference is 5'10" for a woman, minimum height, 6'2" for a man. So when I'm 6'3.5" and wearing heels, the 5'10" women who feel very tall are like, wow, okay. Yeah, I'm going to wear my heels next time.
Yeah, exactly. It was my thoughts exactly. And you saw what I put on Facebook afterwards. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
I'm
was.
very grateful for that you felt empowered and that was brilliant, which led us on to talking to each other more and this conversation for many listeners across the world, Blanka, not just the UK. Is there
Yeah.
anything else, maybe going back to your hypno coaching and your mindfulness, are there any other top tips for embracing our tall selves that you may have?
Yeah. So the one thing that I applied myself is to find tall role models.
Yeah.
So there is this show, it's called Suits, and it's all about law office somewhere in US. And there are a couple of characters who are tall women. One of the character name is Jessica Pearson. And every time that I find myself in a situation that I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? And I start to crouch down,
Yeah.
I just ask myself, what would Jessica do? And because I love this show, just watching her, walking around the office in high heels, towering above the average height guys, and just being like a queen. It's so empowering.
Yeah.
So I would strongly recommend our listeners to find tall role models, somebody that you aspire to be like,
Yeah.
because there is this concept that we can model excellence. So just observing somebody else who you perceive as confident and powerful, or whichever other qualities you would love to have, and just modeling them. Be like, okay, I'm going to put on Jessica's dress for today, and I'm just going to behave like Jessica, and see how that changes, how you feel. Because the thing is, you don't need to just be one person. You can try multiple things and just see whatever clicks with you.
Sometimes with me, it relates to my mood, my outfit, where I'm going. Yeah, so it's good to have a role model. And I think, Blanka, you're a good role model. You're a very positive, lovely person, and you've given us some great pointers for the men and women out there. It doesn't really matter. We talk a lot about heels and outfits and hair, but the bottom line being, find a way to embrace your tall self.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's of any help, just think about yourself as a human being. Like, nobody is talking to shorter people and, telling them that they are short. It's just because, again, going back to what the general population perceive us as powerful and leaders and just people who are there to help others. Maybe that's the reason why they are drawn to us.
We just have to focus on those positives, don't we?
Exactly. And that's all about changing that talk within ourselves. So I would strongly recommend the listeners to do this little exercise. Like the next time that you go out, and just before you close the front door behind you, take a deep breath and just tell to yourself, how would my best friend talk to me right now? Would they criticize me?
Yeah.
I don't think so. They would tell you something that's really good about you, something that is nice, be it how you dress, your smile, maybe how tall you are because they admire that. Something which is very positive. And before you close that front door, just keep that positive thought in your head and see if there are any changes to the interactions you have that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Because going out with that positive mindset gives you hopefully some really wonderful interactions, some really genuine, positive times.
Yeah, because once again, we attract what we think about.
Yeah.
So once we start teaching ourselves to think a bit more positively, I'm not saying that everything is, amazing and sunshine and rainbows every single day.
Of course.
I'm just saying it's to finding these little positive things.
Glimmers.
And yeah, exactly, glimmers. And one thing that I suggested to my clients as well is to start doing like a little exercise at the end of the day. Basically, to take a journal, piece of paper, or electric device, whatever is easiest for you to write down, and just focus on 3 things that went well that day.
Yes.
Just write them down. Sometimes I do it in bullet points, sometimes I just do full sentences. And I am very sure that if you keep doing this for at least a week, very soon those 3 will grow to 5, 10, 20, 1 page, 2 pages. Because again, it's shifting that perception, it's shifting that mindset, and it's focusing on something that we really appreciate and love.
Yeah. So I do my gratitudes as well, as my day and night. I used to say to my sons, yeah, what have we done today that's good? And yeah, always go to bed with a nice smile on your face thinking, yeah, that was a good day.
Yeah, exactly.
So when that comes round to a height, it can be something as simple as, well, there were some scaffolders next door and they said hello and nobody commented on my height. Isn't that brilliant? That's great. We had a whole conversation about tea and coffee and not once did they comment on my height. So I see that as a positive.
Yeah, or you can do what I do when I see other tall people. Let's say in my dance class, I do Zumba on Saturdays. I approach them with, "Oh, another beautifully tall person," and we were
Brilliant.
both in the middle of class, and I'm like, "Do you also feel like not going too much in front so other people can see?"
Yeah, relating to each other. My mum would be
Yeah.
ever so pleased Because when you say about your friend, imagine your friend and you're at the door and what would they say to you? It was my mother that said to me when I was a teenager, "Come on, Letty, shoulders back, chin up, you're beautifully tall, let's go." And that's where the phrase came from, beautifully tall.
Wow, I love it.
Yeah, she's no longer with us. Well, she's passed on many years ago. But the phrase beautifully tall, that positivity, that trying to encourage other people, that vibe is still there, that message. And it's brought a tear to my eye, you saying that to that fellow lady in your dance class, Blanka. That's a lovely anecdote. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just something that I do like when I see other tall women specifically, um, be it in conference, dance classes, I always go kind of back to how I used to feel, and I'm just like approaching them and being like, okay, there is actually another tall friend in here, so I am here if you need support, be it emotional support or something else. And I would just appreciate somebody else doing this for me. So yeah, spreading love and kindness wherever I go. All love and kindness.
And listeners, isn't it lovely to have Blanka with us for the first episode of season 2, where we have more chats with beautifully tall people from our very, very talented tall community. Blanka, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we sign off and say farewell?
The only thing that I would like to add is that if anybody is that person who needs more people to, well, actually anybody to reach out because they are feeling like I used to feel, you know, being too tall and not fitting in, just reach out to me. Like, I am very happy to have a conversation just about pretty much anything. It's nice to make more tall, beautiful friends. So the one thing which I would love to do is to offer a gift to our tall community. I have made a recording which is more about encouraging positive thoughts when you are stepping out of that door.
It's beautiful, listeners. It's a really lovely recording. In fact, I've already got it on my iPhone ready to use in the future.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's lovely.
So yeah, I would love to give this gift to fellow listeners.
And how can they get hold of that gift, Blanka?
We're gonna put a link and then they will be able to download it from a page, because I am aware that some people might need additional help that they'd like to discuss one-on-one, and I'm very open to that as well. So yeah, we're gonna provide a link.
Okay, that's fabulous. So Blanka Volna, beautifully tall and positive and helpful, helping your tall community, giving some really fabulous insights on how we can focus on being positive and dealing with our height. Thank you ever so much for joining us today, Blanka.
Thank you so much for having me. And I would say, Letty, if it wasn't for you putting together this community with the fellow co-founder, this conversation would have never happened. So I am very grateful that you have started this movement, empowering tall people to just be beautifully tall.
Thank you. Not just me. I have co-founder Nat Daniels, my co-host Tom Garner, and many, many people every month on the Facebook group and in person. But I'm very touched by your words. Thank you, Blanka.
Thank you, Letty.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that was Blanka. What do you think, Tom?
Well, I really liked her tall positivity. That was fantastic. We need more positive attitudes like that. And you're right, she has a very good voice for radio, that's for sure.
Incredible voice and a really lovely person. So she'll be at our next meet as well. So that's good. Yeah, she was one of the ladies that wore heels with me last time. So we got a special heel bonding. Yeah. So
yes, how did it feel to be wearing? How empowered did you feel wearing heels with a fellow tall woman?
Well, I was really nervous. Not that I come across as nervous sometimes, but I was very nervous. And then It was, I wasn't on my own. She wasn't on her own. And a few others. And now I think we've started a thing. A beautifully tall, positive thing.
I know. I think that's really good when if you're feeling nervous in a social situation, particularly if you're overly tall, not overly tall, beautifully tall.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, I know. I had to rethink that. I thought, hang on, no, we're not overly tall. That's the thing, Letty. When it comes into my head, often my default is self-deprecation when it comes to height, and we talk about beautifully tall constantly, but even now I still have to kind of check myself just to say, no, it is beautifully tall. It's not overly tall. There's nothing wrong with it. It's all positive.
You're doing it though. You're changing it up. I mean, this is what we said on a call whilst not recording yesterday. The journey that we've both had, and you're correcting yourself, and that's it's great. But I definitely would urge listeners to listen to the hypnocoach session that Blanka has offered, free of charge. So it's kind of like a pep talk from your best friend before you leave the house as a tall person. And it works across you don't have to be tall, frankly, to listen to it and to get some worth from it. Have a listen to that when you've got the time, listeners, please, because it really is a very relaxing, empowering hypno-coaching.
Cracking. That sounds really good. Yeah. So changing hearts and minds, including my own, which is what we need.
Tom, thank you for a wonderful episode 1 of season 2.
Thank you, Letty. Yeah, it's been great to come back and start a second season. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, so am I. And thank you, listeners, for joining us with the Tall Talk Times podcast.
Thank you very much, listeners. And yes, before we go, just to let you know, if you have any questions you want to ask us, we have messages on our Facebook group. We're happy to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.